August Outro by Julie Wendell. A pestering two-beat chirp, a sound my mother warned was the beginning of the end. I was a young girl then, long before I learned the portent applied to me and what comes achingly fast, then lingers. My throat catches on nectar drunk, decades eaten. I jitter my legs, rub them together, spread my human version of a leathery wing. I aim to have 10,000 children. I aim to attract you, to pierce your ears with my outro and not let go. Well, I always love poems that bring in something with simplicity and actually hit a mark, because simplicity for simplicity's sake isn't enough. So what caught me here, first of all, I love that opening line. We had that in our workshop, a pestering two-beat chirp. It says so much. It gives me so much rhythm and a feeling and a hearing. And I'm already thinking crickets. And I'm already wondering about how this applies. August, crickets, end of the summer. And then I won't use she, because the narrator in this poem, the narrator goes into I'm trying to think what, like zoomorphism. The narrator is being a cricket, or going into the feeling of that cricket. And that really caught me and pulled me in and was unexpected. And there's hyperbole, but for a human, but not for a cricket. I aim to have 10,000 children, But I really saw the human feeling behind what this cricket goes through and what this narrator is going through to have relationships that are, once puberty has happened, she was a young girl then, but this beginning of the end. And I'm thinking about this narrator's eggs and the eggs of the cricket and lifespan. And so that's the content for me. I just really enjoyed too the way that just the way there was like jitter, that word, that irregular random movement brought so much, just one word brought so much in the context, and then rubbing them together and spread my human version of a leathery wing. It was so visual for me. So yeah, and I just, again, love that literary element of the human like an animal. I often see anthropomorphism making an animal like a human. So I enjoyed that this insect was the metaphor used here. So yeah, short, distinct. Yeah, I appreciated it.
Well, and you touch on something like when I was reading this poem for the first time, yes, I mean the opening lines, right? But then the beginning of the end, I was a young girl then, long before I learned the portent applied to me and what comes achingly fast and lingers. The same thing, right? The end of puberty. There's something so youthful implied by summer and the August outro, right? And something about I'm thinking of like coming of age and finding out what it is to be a woman, because this is a very feminine poem. I aim to have 10,000 children. I aim to attract you, to pierce your ears. So like this, like kind of, your cricket chirp is your siren call, which is unique. I'd never thought about it like that. But yeah, there's something so dreadful about growing up as a woman in a way. The beginning of the end, there's a sense of dread to it. What comes achingly fast and then lingers. And then suddenly, what happens when you can't have 10,000 children and you can't attract, who are you then at the end of August as you come into the fall of your life? So
I love that you mentioned like the portent. It's like calamitous. It's like
yes.
heading to it's like something's definitely ending. Just like summer. Yeah, just like there's so many pieces to that.
Yes, this whole poem is a vibe. And I'm glad we're talking about it, because I had chosen a different poem, but I thought about that line, I was a young girl then, for hours when I was reading through this.
That you said it, Rachel, and not me, but yeah, it feels like a clear-cut case where we don't have to worry about the they them pronouns. it's.
Yeah, I always worry though. I still just, I
Me
want to
too, no,
make
really.
sure I'm cool. But yeah, there's that feminine feel. So
Yeah, it seems like the poem kind of announces itself gently, that clearly this is a female situation. So that'll be a bigger stretch. But what I absolutely relate to is the summer cycle, or the summer vacation cycle is how I would conceive of it. And I unfortunately got this from my dad and Dylan Thomas. And now we were agreeing in the evening of our years kind of stuff, where we're talking about high summer being kind of the peak, and then the distinction after that. And I do this thing where I formulate an entire summer vacation around what I hope is going to do, and then summer vacation's ending, and we're going to have to go back to school, and the death of fun, and the absolute kind of. And I also recognize that I do that with weekends, like weekends. What's better than Saturday morning? And then it's all kind of downhill from there. And it doesn't have the urgency that it would if you're also, well, it does have the urgency in terms of mortality, but if you're thinking about procreation, recreation from a feminine perspective, that's the thing. Like, guys, there's a whole nother layer that I can't even get at, that would have to do with the urgency of the end of summer, having grown up with kind of the Hemingway version of how you're approaching death. This is really nice because it is kind of the much more intelligent kind of fallback position, but yet still kind of hopeful. Does anybody have you mentioned jitter my legs, rub them together, spread my human version of a leathery wing. Whenever I read a poem like this, I have a craving to get pretty literal. What's the leathery wing?
well, that's what rubs together to make the siren call, right? The individual call. They rub and they are really leather. They're called leathery, the way the croppings go on them. Yeah.
Gotcha. So that's how the cricket actually performs the noise that attracts the males. But she's acknowledging that it's a metaphor. She's kind of stepping out of being the cricket, because she says the human version.
Right.
What is she referring to?
Yeah, she makes herself present. The narrator's present.
Okay. I was thinking like karaoke, or a way that someone could perform to pull people in. I tend to get overly literal with some of the metaphors.
You know what like puts itself in my head, and I don't know why this is what pops up when I read this poem, but spread my human version of a leathery wing. I think about to launch or to fly. What comes next after you spread your wings, right? You launch yourself into what is the twilight of your youth. And again, one thing I really want to compliment about this poem is how dense it is for how short it is. It's just 2 stanzas. And I always find when I'm writing poetry, sometimes I need 2-3 pages to get around to my point, and this is so succinct. But yeah, human version of a leathery wing. I aim to have 10,000 children. I aim to attract you. I just think about like launching yourself into, I guess, because, you think about like mating calls and mating season when it comes to like animals, and not just crickets, but I'm thinking of like birds too, where there's like so much fierce competition. So there's so much implied here, beyond just like, I don't know, the end of summer. There's so much more implied here than just losing your youth.
I also want to say about the leathery wing. I want you to go on, Rachel, but I just want to interject something I looked up. And under the leathery wing, it's called an ovipositor. It's the pod in the abdomens where the eggs are laid. So there's a sexual, sensual, reproductive piece to this when she says, spread my human version of a leathery wing. I think about, it's very sexual. So I'm just tagging into what you're saying, Rachel, with a little bit of anatomy of a cricket. Just saying.
Well, and I love the line, I aim to attract you, like specifically. So it's like at the end of all of this, we're actually addressing you, just this one you. And I don't know who we're talking to, but for me, it's like, I don't know, I sort of lost my train of thought there for a second, but I think I aim to pierce your ears, but it's really like, I aim to attract you pierces me when I'm reading that line. And then I think it really grounds the poem. It brings the whole poem together. And then it's just like, I'm talking to you. I aim to attract you, to pierce your ears with my outro and not let go, even after my eggs are gone. Like, this poem is it's kind of like a spell. it lingers. I will say, you know, what comes achingly fast and lingers, this poem lingers.
I would
Yeah,
offer kind of like the anti-siren poem. The siren is like pull you in, but ultimately to consume you. So in nature, that would be what the praying mantis or the black widow side. And this is kind of the opposite of that. I want to be with you, but also be with you after, or whatever physiological imperatives we have. There's still kind of a sense of that we'll be together when she attracted, and maybe that's my optimistic sensibility.
that is part of, I think, what draws a reader into the poem is those two stanza ending lines and how the line breaks before the last line of each stanza. So it's what achingly fast, line break, what comes achingly fast, line break, then lingers. And then in the second stanza with my outro, line break and not let go. So the two last lines, then lingers and not let go. Kind of just, they kind of bounce back and forth off each other. And it is that, I don't know about you, but I'm kind of left with this uncertainty of like, yeah, is it the lingering a good thing? Is it a bad thing? Do we want to let go? Do we not want to let go? Like, maybe that's, again, subjective reading by me struggling with like letting go of things. So I'm like, I want to let go of things that I want to let go of. But there is that kind of like bouncing back and forth of where I don't think the reader is certain like what the emotional impact of those are for the speaker.
Mm.